A poor girl sits beside the Mafia boss on a train and wakes up as his fiancée in the Swiss Alps. The train swayed, slow and indifferent, cutting through the Swiss winter like a scalpel over skin. I hated everything about it. The too warm cabin, the cold glass against my cheek, the ache behind my eyes from too many nights sleeping in borrowed beds. But mostly, I hated him. He hadn't said a word, not when I dropped my bag too close to his polished shoes, not when I muttered sorry under my breath and took the window seat, not even when I fell asleep against the humming metal of the wall, my body giving out for just one moment. But when I woke up, everything had changed. His arm was around my shoulders, heavy, possessive, relaxed, as if it had always belonged there. "Good morning, amore mio," he said, and the way the words slid past his lips made my stomach twist in ways I didn't like. I froze, slowly looked up. His eyes were obsidian, sharp, ancient, amused. "Excuse me?" I whispered. He gave me a lazy smile, the kind of smile that's used to being obeyed. "You were cold. You leaned into me. I didn't mind." I pulled away, muscles tight with shame and confusion. I didn't even know this man, and yet I'd fallen asleep against him, like some helpless thing. The other passengers stared. Some smiled politely. One woman winked. He noticed my panic and tilted his head. "Don't worry," I told them everything. "That we're engaged. That you're coming home with me." My heart dropped so fast I forgot how to breathe. "What the hell are you talking about?" Now he turned his full body toward me, stretching like a cat in a sunbeam. "You really don't remember? You were half asleep. You said yes." I didn't say anything. "You nodded," he said. "And in this world, a nod can mean a lot. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But people were watching us, as if they already knew. As if this little lie he crafted had sunk into the air like perfume. "You're insane," I snapped. He just smiled again. "Possibly." The train jolted. I flinched. He didn't. "You're not Swiss," I said. "No." "Italian?" "Yes. You followed me." That smile widened, and I hated how perfect his mouth was. "Let's say I was curious. You stood out." My skin crawled. "What do you want from me?" His eyes flicked to my hands. "You have the posture of someone who's always had to prove herself, and the mouth of someone who doesn't want help, but secretly hopes someone insists." He leaned in, lips grazing my ear. "I'm insisting." I slapped him. Not hard enough, but it cracked loud enough for a few passengers to gasp. He didn't react. Instead, he looked down at me like I'd just told him a secret, one he planned to keep. "You'll regret this," I hissed. "I already don't," he murmured. The train began to slow. Outside, snow fell like ash over the lake. My heart thundered in my ribs and my hands trembled. I didn't know who he was, but I knew one thing for sure. He wasn't guessing. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't chance. This was a move, calculated, deliberate, and I had just been played. He stood first, picked up my bag, held it like it already belonged to him. Then he looked over his shoulder and said softly, "Don't worry, amore mio. Everything will make sense once we're home." I watched him walk away, tall and silent in his tailored coat, as if he had just closed the first chapter of a story I never agreed to enter. And still, I followed, not because I trusted him, not because I was curious, but because something in his voice, deep, calm, and impossibly certain, felt more terrifying than the lie itself. He believed it. He believed I was his, and part of me, the part I didn't understand yet, wanted to know what it meant to be claimed by someone like him, even if it destroyed me. If you're not yet part of our community, subscribe. It will be beautiful to have you with us. And to everyone, leave a like and comment something, anything, because every sign from you is a way for me to feel the warmth of this gathering, even from afar.
I noticed her the second she stepped into the cabin. She was like a knife dressed as a girl, sharp edges hidden beneath tired eyes and a coat 2 winters too old. She moved like someone who didn't want to be seen, but didn't know how not to be noticed. It was in the way she clenched her jaw. Like every glance she received was a debt she never asked for. And I was bored. Bored in the dangerous, inevitable way that men like me get bored when the world stops offering surprises. She became my surprise. I didn't speak when she sat beside me, didn't flinch when her bag brushed my foot. I just waited. Patience is something I was born with. So is cruelty. She fell asleep quickly, the exhaustion written in the slump of her shoulder. I watched her reflection in the window as she drifted off, head tilted, mouth slightly open, arms folded in defense even in rest. I didn't touch her at first. I just observed, took in the quiet defiance carved into her face. Then, slowly, I draped my arm around her shoulders. She didn't wake, and I didn't care what that said about me. The others in the cabin, their eyes darted toward us, then away, curious. envious, afraid. I let them wonder. Let the story write itself. She was mine now. That was all they needed to believe. When she finally stirred, her confusion was beautiful. The slow return of awareness, the tightening of her mouth, the sudden flicker of fury. I felt her heartbeat spike against my side before she even opened her mouth. Good morning, amore mio. Her reaction didn't disappoint. She recoiled, stared, asked the right questions with the wrong tone. She tried to own the space between us, but I'd already rewritten it. I told her the lie, clean and simple, that she'd agreed to be my fiancé in her sleep, that the people around us believed it, that she was already part of the game. She slapped me. It made a satisfying sound, and a few heads turned. I didn't blink. She thought she'd wounded me. She didn't realize I liked the burn. What I saw in her then wasn't fear. It was calculation. A girl from the bottom who'd spent her life mapping exits, memorizing escape routes, surviving in silence. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She studied me like I was a problem she intended to solve. That's what made her dangerous. And that's what made me keep going. My father thinks I'm soft, that I'm not ready to wear the crown he spent his life tarnishing. He sent me here to clear my head, to prove I can be cold when it counts. He doesn't know I already am, but I'm not like him. I don't break people with bullets. I break them with story, with whispers, with illusions so seductive they never realize they're bleeding until it's far too late. Chiara will make them question me, the old men, the capos, my father himself. They'll see her as a weakness, a flaw, and they'll underestimate me. That's the point. Let them believe I've gone soft. Let them believe she's my mistake, and when the moment comes, when they reach for their knives, I'll already be behind them. But still, something about her unsettles me. The way she looked at me before stepping off the train, the way she hesitated, then followed, not because she believed me, not because she feared me, but because something in her wanted to see what I'd do next. So I walked slowly, waiting to hear her footsteps behind mine. They came, light, reluctant, deliciously tense, and I smiled, not because I had won, but because for the first time in years, I didn't know what came next.
I found him in a restaurant that didn't fit my budget, but I walked in anyway. The kind of place where the chairs were too heavy and the silence cost more than the food. He sat at a corner table dressed in shadows and arrogance, his suit perfect, his watch gleaming like a warning. 3 men flanked him. They laughed too loudly, but no one around dared look. He didn't see me right away. Good. I wanted to burn him before he noticed. I marched straight up to the table, chest tight, face numb from the cold outside and the fury boiling inside. "You think this is funny?" I said, too loud. "Whatever game you're playing, I'm not a piece on your board." The laughter stopped. His eyes lifted slowly, like a predator acknowledging prey that dared bare teeth. "Chiara," he said, my name like silk dragged over glass. "You found me. I'm not yours." "You say that with such conviction," he murmured. "But you're here." He gestured to the empty seat across from him, calm, unbothered. "Sit." "I'm not." His hand moved before I could finish. He reached behind my neck, fingers sliding under my hair, and cupped the base of my skull, firm, possessive. I froze, every cell in my body misfiring. Heat shot down my spine. My knees nearly buckled. His thumb stroked the edge of my hairline. The table, the people, the world dissolved. All that existed was the weight of his touch, the command in it, the poison it poured into my blood. "You're shaking," he whispered. "I'm furious," I hissed. "Same thing." I should have slapped him again, screamed, pulled away, but I didn't move. I couldn't. I hated him, hated the way he made me feel exposed, wanted, weak, and I hated myself more for not stepping back. He leaned in, close enough for his breath to graze my cheek, warm and slow. "Now everyone in this room believes you belong to me," he said. His voice dropped to a growl. "Do you know what that means?" I met his gaze. Those eyes didn't ask for permission. They just took. I swallowed the lump in my throat and whispered, "It means you're a liar." He smiled, satisfied. "Perhaps, but you're still standing here, letting me touch you." He released me gently, like he'd made his point and didn't need to press it harder. My skin burned where his hand had been. I stepped back. My legs didn't feel like mine anymore. "I came here to warn you," I said. "Stay away from me." "I won't." His answer was instant, absolute, and I believed him. I turned and walked out before my voice cracked, before my spine betrayed me again. The cold outside slapped me in the face, but it wasn't enough to wash away the imprint of his fingers on my skin. I didn't know what game he was playing, but I was already losing.
She followed me, not with words, not with surrender, but with fire flickering in her eyes and a storm twisting her jaw tight. She followed me into the hotel like she wanted to stab me. I let her. I didn't speak. We stepped into the elevator, just the two of us. No one else brave enough to share that space. The doors closed. I pressed the button. Silence. She stood to my left, arms crossed like armor, breathing shallow. "You think I'm afraid of you?" she said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. "I'm not," she snapped. Still, I said nothing. The numbers blinked above us. Floor 6, floor 5. She turned her body toward me, furious. "You can't just take people," she hissed. "You don't get to decide things and expect everyone to play along." Now I looked at her, slowly, deliberately. Her eyes widened a fraction. "You followed me," I said softly. "I came to warn you." I stepped toward her. She didn't move back. That was her mistake. I closed the distance between us in a single breath. My hand touched her waist. Lightly, just fingertips. Testing, reading. She went rigid, but didn't step away. "You don't want me," she said, voice cracking. "Don't I?" She inhaled sharply when I tilted her chin up. She was trembling, with rage, with confusion, with something she didn't want to name. "You're sick," she whispered. "Possibly. Floor 3, floor 2. "I'm going to scream," she said. I leaned down, mouth near hers, but not touching yet. "Do it," I whispered. She opened her mouth to speak, and I kissed her. Not gently, not kindly. I kissed her like I meant to brand her. Her gasp died in my mouth. My hand slid behind her neck again. That place I already knew made her spine arch. My other hand rested on her hip, holding her still. She didn't fight. She didn't pull away. She kissed me back, until she didn't. She shoved my chest, hard, panting. Her eyes were wild, betrayed by the heat still flushing her skin. "You bastard." I licked the taste of her off my bottom lip and smiled. "You wanted to know if I meant it," I said. The elevator chimed. We reached the lobby. The doors slid open. She rushed out like she couldn't breathe inside that box. I watched her walk away, back tense, fists clenched. She was mine now. She just didn't know how deep the claws had gone.
I didn't remember leaving the hotel. One moment, I was in the elevator with his mouth on mine, his hand on my waist, his voice in my blood like wildfire. And the next, I was outside, walking fast, breathless, lost in the night. The air was sharp, clean, cruel. The snow hadn't started yet, but the sky threatened it. The street was quiet, lined with elegant lamps and shadows that stretched like fingers toward my ankles. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to get away. From him, from myself, from the part of me that had kissed him back. Because I had. God, I had. And worse than the shame was the memory of how it felt. The way his hand found the back of my neck like he knew me. The way he didn't ask. The way I didn't want him to. "Slow down," came his voice behind me, low and steady. I froze, then turned, fast. "What do you want?" I spat. He stood a few paces away, coat open, dark eyes gleaming under the street lamp like they were forged from oil and smoke. "You left in a rush. You kissed me." "Yes, you kissed me. You kissed me back." I wanted to slap him again. I wanted to erase the moment from existence. Instead, I just stood there, shaking, half from cold, half from the burn of his presence. "You think you can just take what you want," I said, my voice breaking. "No." He stepped closer. "I take what's already mine." "You're insane." He moved again. I backed up until my spine hit the brick wall of a closed boutique. The cold bit through my coat. He stopped inches away. His hand reached up, but slowly this time, and touched the collar of my coat, brushing snowflakes that hadn't yet fallen. I hated how my breath caught. His face hovered just above mine. I could feel the warmth of his skin, the faint scent of leather and something darker, like danger made flesh. "I scare you," he murmured. "No," I lied. "You want me to?" That truth slammed into my chest like a fist. I looked away. His fingers touched my jaw, barely there, but I felt it everywhere. "You're trembling again," he said. "It's cold." Liar. He leaned in like he might kiss me again. I closed my eyes, waited, but he didn't. When I opened them, he was gone. The street was empty again, but the cold couldn't touch the fire he left behind.
I chose the taverna on purpose. No velvet chairs, no whispered name, no guards at the door. Just stone walls, firelight, and the scent of burnt rosemary. Chiara stepped in behind me, visibly wary. Her eyes scanned the room like she expected to be dragged into some other, but there were no suits here. No gold watches, cold smile, just worn table, loud laughter, and wine served in mismatch. She hesitated at the threshold. "I'm not." "You will be." She didn't argue. That, in itself, was new. I let her pick the seat. She chose the one across from me, as if the small wooden table was enough armor. I sat opposite and waved for the waiter without looking. Bread came, then oil, then a bottle of wine. She didn't touch anything. I poured for her anyway. "You brought me here to pretend to be normal?" she asked. "I brought you here so we could eat." She studied me. "Do you ever stop controlling everything?" "No." She rolled her eyes but reached for the bread. I watched her fingers, slender, precise, stronger than they looked. She dipped a piece into the oil, brought it to her mouth, and took a bite. It was such a simple act, but something about it pulled a thread inside me. I picked up my glass. To peace treaties. She gave me a flat look. This isn't peace. It's a ceasefire. I smiled. Even better. Dinner came quickly. Pasta with black garlic, lamb slow cooked in wine. She looked at it suspiciously, then gave in. Hunger, after all, was universal. We ate mostly in silence, but not a heavy one. The noise around us filled the space between. She relaxed, just slightly. I noticed when her shoulders lost that knife-edge tension. And then, under the table, I moved. My foot brushed hers. She paused. I didn't withdraw. Her eyes lifted to meet mine. She said nothing. I shifted just enough to graze her ankle with the tip of my shoe. This time she kicked me. Soft, precise. A warning. I leaned back, smiling. Then I reached under the table, slowly, and let my fingers rest on her. She froze. Tell me to stop, I said. She didn't. I slid my hand up, inch by inch, the fabric of her dress rising with my knuckles. Her breath caught. Our plates were still full. My hand reached mid-thigh. She grabbed my wrist under the table. I thought she would push me away. She didn't. She held it there. Not guiding. Not resisting. Just trembling. You're not allowed to touch me like this, she whispered. No one else ever will. I felt her pulse under my palm, fast and furious. Her grip tightened. Her eyes burned. Why are you doing this? Because I can't stop thinking about the sound you made in the elevator. Her breath hitched. I leaned forward, hand still on her leg, and said quietly, and I want to hear it again. She pulled back sharply, stood up. The chair scraped loudly, drawing attention. I didn't move. She didn't speak. She just turned and walked toward the door. But she didn't run. That was all I needed. I stood slowly, left money on the table, and followed her into the night. The cold bit at my face, but I barely felt it. She was already waiting outside, arms crossed, eyes furious. You want me to break, she said. No, I want you to bend. She stepped toward me, breath rising like smoke between us. What happens if I do? I touched her face, gently this time. Then I'll never let you go. She stared at me for a long time. Then without a word, she turned and walked back toward the hotel. Didn't smile. I didn't chase, but I knew. I was already inside her, just like she was inside me, and neither of us was leaving alive.
I needed air that didn't taste like him. So I dragged Elena out of the hotel before my skin started to burn from memories I didn't ask for. We walked through narrow stone streets, the kind that curled like secrets, warm lights pouring from old cafes, voices rising in musical Italian that made everything sound softer than it was. I chose Venice without thinking. The maze of it calmed me. The water, the mask, the illusion of freedom. Elena, bless her, didn't ask questions. She just looped her arm through mine and told a stupid story about a professor who fell asleep during her thesis presentation. I laughed. A real laugh. It startled me. I wanted to feel that again. Something that belonged to me. Wine? Elena asked, pointing to a small bar with tables outside, covered in candles and ivy. Yes, I said too quickly. We sat, and for a moment I forgot. I forgot the train, the lie, the kiss, the hands under the table. The look in his eyes that said he already knew how I would taste when I broke. I was sipping my glass when the air shifted. Elena looked up first. Her smile faltered. I turned, and there he was. Domenico stood at the edge of the street, leaning against a lamppost like it belonged to him. No suit tonight. Black sweater, black coat, still too elegant, still too dangerous. I felt his eyes on me like a bruise that hadn't faded. Elena whispered, "That's him, isn't it?" I couldn't answer. He started walking toward us. No urgency, no hesitation, just inevitability. Elena straightened in her seat, unsure whether to stay or run. "I'm not leaving you alone with him," she said. "I'm not afraid," I lied. But when he reached our table, every part of me screamed. He didn't look at Elena. Not at first. "Chiara," he said. My name again, dragged low and slow over his tongue. "I was wondering where you'd gone. I told you to stay away from me, and I told you I wouldn't." Elena cleared her throat, sharp and disapproving. Domenico turned to her then, finally acknowledging her presence. His smile was polite but distant, the kind of expression that said he didn't need to be cruel because he was already winning. "Elena," I said quickly, This is Domenico." He extended a hand. She didn't take it. He chuckled. "Your loyalty is admirable." "We were having a private evening," I said. "I missed you," he replied, as if that excused everything. I stood. "We're leaving." He moved aside, but not far enough. As I passed him, his hand brushed mine. Not by accident. I didn't pull away fast enough. That touch sparked a memory. His fingers on my thigh, his breath in my ear, my own shameful gasp echoing in my head. Outside the bar, Elena grabbed my arm. He's not just dangerous, she said. He's addictive. You need to be careful. I nodded, but I was already past careful. I was in trouble. Because even now, as I walked into the dark with my best friend at my side and his touch fading from my skin, all I could think about was what would have happened if I'd stayed.
I summoned Julieta the way a man summons a memory he's never missed. Out of necessity, not desire. She arrived on time. Julieta was always punctual. Her beauty was the kind that stopped rooms but didn't invite warmth. Classic, controlled. Her dress was deep burgundy, her posture a declaration of ownership, of herself, of any man she was told to stand beside, and she was told to stand beside me. The restaurant was half lit, music low, all crystal and shadow. I chose the table near the center, where we could be seen, where Kiara would see us, because she would come. I made sure of it. She hated being predictable, but I'd learned her patterns, her need to test me, to outmaneuver me. She wanted proof that this wasn't us. So I gave her the very thing that would make her doubt everything. Julieta. She sat across from me like a statue sculpted for diplomacy. You called, she said, sipping her wine without smudging the glass. Yes, you want them to see us. I want one person to see us. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Still playing? Always. She studied me for a moment, head tilted. You don't usually repeat pieces. She's different. Julieta blinked slowly, then looked away. That was her version of judgment. She wouldn't say it. She wouldn't dare. But she didn't need to. Kiara arrived 15 minutes later. I didn't turn to look, but I felt her. She paused in the doorway, long enough for the vision to settle in. Me, dressed in black. Julieta, the ideal counterpart. Our table glowing with candlelight. Perfect. Kiara took a seat at a table on the other side of the room, Elena beside her like a barrier made of judgment and concern. She didn't look at me. That made me smile. Julieta, sensing the shift, leaned closer. She's beautiful, she said quietly. Yes, you're not pretending. I didn't answer. She reached out, touched my wrist. A calculated move. Her nails grazed the cuff of my sleeve. I let it happen. Across the room, Kiara's wineglass paused midway to her mouth. Excellent. Julieta leaned further. You want her to see you happy. You want her to believe she's replaceable. She's not. The words left me before I could filter them. Julieta froze. I looked across the room. Kiara was no longer looking. She was whispering something to Elena, her jaw tight, her eyes shining with a light that made my throat burn. Regret? No. Recognition. She knew I was playing with fire, but she didn't know I was already burning. Julieta withdrew her hand. You've made your point, she said, tone cooler now. And so has she. I stood. The table shifted with the sudden motion. She's not a game, I said, more to myself than to anyone else. Julieta remained seated, watching me with quiet disbelief. She'll ruin you, she warned. I looked toward the door, where Kiara was already rising to leave. I hope so, I muttered, and walked away before I could betray anything.
I hated how beautiful she was. Julieta. Even her name sounded like a threat wrapped in silk. She sat across from Domenico like she belonged there. Every movement fluid, effortless, practiced. Her fingers touched his wrist like they had every right. Her laugh, quiet, graceful, was designed to make women like me feel lesser. And it worked. My stomach twisted so tight I could barely breathe. Elena leaned across the table. We should go. I couldn't move. I was glued to the scene, to them, to him. He didn't touch Julieta much, just enough. But I knew him now. Enough to see the shift in his posture, the slight tension in his jaw when Julieta leaned in. He was aware of me. He was doing this for me. And that made it worse. Because it meant I mattered. And I didn't want to matter to someone like him. I stood suddenly. My chair scraped loud against the floor. Heads turned. Elena reached for my arm, but I pulled away. I walked out into the night like it could save me. Rain greeted me the moment I stepped outside. Cold, sharp, cleansing. I didn't care. I walked faster. My heels clicked against wet stone. I turned into narrow alleys, past shuttered storefronts and flickering lamps, hoping the city would swallow me whole. But it didn't. Footsteps followed. I didn't have to look. I told you to stay away, I said without turning. And I told you I wouldn't, he replied, voice calm beneath the rain. I spun on him. He stood under the awning of a closed shop, his hair wet, his coat darker from the storm. Was she supposed to humiliate me? I snapped. Was that the plan? He stepped out into the rain. She was supposed to make you look at me. I laughed. Bitter, sharp. I never stopped looking. That's the problem. His eyes flickered. I kept going. You think you can bend me until I break, that I'll fall into your hands and beg to stay. But I'm not yours. You keep saying that, he said, stepping closer. But here you are. Rain trickled down my neck. My dress clung to my skin. I was cold, furious, exposed. He reached out slowly, fingers brushing a strand of hair from my cheek. I didn't flinch. You're cruel, I whispered. I was made to be. I shook my head, tears mixing with rain now. I hate you. No, he said gently. You hate how much you want me. He leaned in, and I let him. His lips touched mine, not like before, not to claim, to confess. It was slow, aching, desperate. He kissed me like he'd waited lifetimes, and I kissed him back like I was drowning. My hands found his coat, clutched it like an anchor. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me into the heat of his body as the world faded behind the storm. When he pulled away, just barely, I was crying. He kissed the tears without asking. I'm not good, he said softly. I know. I'll ruin you. Maybe. But I won't let anyone else touch you. His voice was a promise, and I believed him.
Laughter. That's what did it. Not the way she stood. Not the way she looked in that pale blue dress that made her skin glow like moonlight. Not even the way Marco leaned too close when he spoke to her. It was the sound she made. Laughter. Light. Unguarded. Real. She had never laughed like that with me. Marco said something else, and she tilted her head back, touched his arm as if she'd forgotten how dangerous men. My hand clenched the edge of the marble bar until my knuckles went white. The room blurred. I no longer heard the music. No longer saw the crystal glasses, the flames dancing in the wall sconces. Only her. Only him. Her smile. His nearness. It burned. I didn't move quickly. No one noticed my approach until the silence dropped around us like a blade. Marco looked up first. His smile faltered when he saw my face. Chiara turned. Too slow. Too calm. She didn't realize the line she'd crossed. Marco, I said, voice even. He stood straighter. Domenico. Out. He blinked. We were just talking. Out. He hesitated. Chiara's brows drew together. What are you? I grabbed her wrist. Not hard. Not cruel, but final. She gasped, more from surprise than pain, and I pulled her gently, firmly, through the room, through a side door, down a narrow corridor, until we were alone. The walls were plastered white. The only light came from a flickering overhead bulb that buzzed like it wanted to die. I pressed her against the wall. She didn't resist. Her eyes were wide, lips parted, chest rising fast. What the hell was that? I asked. She glared. I was laughing. At him. At a joke. He touched you. He's your friend. Not anymore. Her mouth opened to argue. I leaned in, pressing one hand beside her head, the other hovering near her hip. She wasn't afraid. That made it worse. You don't get to act like this, she said, chin high. You have Giulietta. I laughed. A low, bitter sound. Do you really think she matters? You made her matter. I didn't answer. Because she was right. I brought the flame, but now I was the one burning. Her breath hitched when I moved closer. Our noses almost touched. I tilted my head, mouth inches from hers. You like provoking me, I whispered. No. Liar. My lips grazed hers. Not a kiss. A warning. A promise. She trembled. So did I. You think you can control me, she said. I don't want to control you. I pressed my forehead to hers, breathing her in like poison and prayer. I want to ruin you for everyone else. Her hand rose, slow, deliberate. She touched my chest, right over my heart. It was beating too fast. I pulled back before I did something I wouldn't undo, before I claimed her in a way neither of us could walk away from. She looked at me, breathless, furious, wanting. I stepped back, but the damage was done. We were both already ruined.
I should have walked away. I should have screamed, slapped him, done anything except what I did, but his hands were still on the wall, caging me in. His breath was still on my lips, and I couldn't forget how it felt when he said he wanted to ruin me for everyone else, because in that moment, I wanted to be ruined. I stared at him, at his mouth. My body moved before my mind gave permission. I grabbed the front of his shirt, yanked him down, and kissed him, hard. He made a sound, surprise, hunger, something between a growl and a sigh, and then he kissed me back. No games this time, no warnings, just heat and hunger and truth. My back hit the wall again as his hands slid to my waist, my hips gripping tight, my fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, deeper. I wanted to drown. His mouth moved to my jaw, my neck. My knees buckled when he bit gently near my collarbone. Chiara. He breathed against my skin, like it hurt to say my name. I gasped when his hand slid under my blouse, fingertips grazing the bare skin of my stomach, tracing up, slow and reverent. Every nerve in my body screamed for more. He lifted me with ease, placing me on the small table beside the hallway, cold wood against my thighs, his heat between my legs. My head fell back. I could barely breathe. His mouth returned to mine, slower now, deeper. One of his hands reached behind my back, the other rested on my inner thigh. I should have stopped him, but I didn't. Not yet. When he started unbuttoning my blouse, one by one, I grabbed his wrist. He froze. His eyes met mine, dark and wild. Not like this, I whispered, breathless. Silence. Then he stepped back, slowly, gently. He tucked a damp strand of hair behind my ear. Then how? When I don't feel like I'm losing myself. His jaw flexed, but he nodded. His fingers still trembled when he pulled my blouse closed again, buttoning it for me with quiet precision, each touch more reverent than the last. I stood, legs weak, heart slamming. He didn't stop me when I walked away, but I knew he was watching, and I knew we were both past the point of no return. I wanted him, and he knew it. The difference now? I wasn't afraid to want him. I was afraid I'd never want anyone else.
I couldn't sleep, not with her taste still on my mouth, not with the way she whispered "not like this" and walked away as if she hadn't set me on fire. She kissed me. She touched me like I was hers. And then she stopped. My control had never been fragile. Until now. I paced the length of the room barefoot, the cold marble floor biting into my heel. The windows were black mirrors, showing me a version of myself I didn't quite recognize. Jaw tense, shirt half open, hair a mess. I'd never wanted anything this much, and I'd never had to wait. I poured whiskey into a crystal glass and let it sit. I didn't drink. I wanted to feel everything tonight. Rome glowed below, familiar, restless, hungry, like me. A knock came at the door. Not a servant's knock, not timid, sharp, intentional. I didn't ask who it was. Only one man entered my space without permission. My father walked in like the king he still believed himself to be. He didn't look at me, went straight to the decanter, poured his own glass, and took my seat like it belonged to him. "You're slipping," he said. I didn't respond. He lit a cigar. The smoke was slow and oily. It filled the room like judgment. You think no one notices, but I do. The hesitation, the softness in your eyes, the delay before you pull the trigger. She kissed me. He looked at me, a flicker of disgust, or envy, and I let her. He exhaled smoke in a long, patient. "You think this is love?" "No," I said. "It's war." His smile sharpened. "Then treat it like una guerra." He pulled a folder from his coat and slid it across the table like a loaded gun. Inside, photos of Chiara, of Elena, a full surveillance profile, times, locations, habits. "This is insurance," he said. "You want the family's respect? You prove she's not a liability." "She isn't. She's poor, unknown, emotional, weak." I stepped closer, voice cold. "She's stronger than you'll ever understand." He leaned back. "Then test her." My jaw tightened. "No physical harm. Then make her break another way. Isolate her. Threaten what she loves. Watch what she does." I didn't speak. Not yet. Because part of me agreed. Part of me needed to know. Not if she loved me, if she could survive me. "She's not like the others," I said. "She's exactly like the others," he snapped. "They all bleed. They all break. The only question is when." I stared at the folder. At the woman I couldn't stop touching. At the friend I knew she would die to protect. This wasn't a test of her. It was a test of me. "Fine," I said. "We do it my way. No bruises." My father raised a brow. Soft. "No. Calculated." I gathered the papers, burned the images into my memory. Chiara laughing with Elena at a cafe. Chiara walking alone with her headphones in, eyes lost in thought. Chiara asleep on a bench in the library, a book over her chest. Fragile, brilliant, mortal. "She passes," I said. "You back off. And if she fails?" My voice was low, final. "She won't." He stood. But before he left, he turned back. "You were born for this," he said. "But don't forget who taught you to survive." He closed the door behind him. I stared at the folder, at my reflection in the glass, at the monster I'd agreed, and I whispered to the empty, more warning than prayer, "Forgive me, because if you fall, I fall with you."
The day began with laughter. Not loud, not careless, but real. Elena and I walked through Campo de' Fiori with coffee in hand and morning light warming our faces. She teased me about my favorite cardigan. Too academic, too serious, and I fired back with a jab about her taste in wine. We were alive. I remember that part clearly. I remember the smell of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor, the flash of pigeons taking flight, the way the cobblestones glistened with early dew. And then, everything broke. A black SUV turned the corner too fast. We looked. Too late. 3 men in dark jackets spilled out, faces covered, movements mechanical, precise. I grabbed Elena's wrist. "Run!" She didn't get the chance. A hand yanked me back by the collar. I fell hard. The air punched from my lungs. Elena screamed. They covered her mouth. I kicked, bit someone's hand, heard him curse in Italian. A fist slammed into the side of my head. Stars exploded behind my eyes. I blacked out. When I woke, the air was different. Cold, heavy, dead. My wrists were bound behind me with coarse rope, so tight it burned. My ankles were tied to the chair legs. My mouth was dry, metallic, blood. The room was small, concrete walls, No windows. One flickering bulb swung above us, casting long, trembling shadows. Elena sat next to me. Her face was pale, lips swollen, blood dried at the edge of her nose. I blinked. Elle. She turned her head slowly. They want something. A voice cut through the silence. Good morning. I looked up. A man in a tailored black jacket, leather gloves, no insignia, no warmth. Behind him, another loomed, silent, bigger. The leader stepped forward and crouched between us, his eyes calm like a surgeon's. You know something, he said to me. I didn't answer. He smiled. He told you. The man you share your mouth with. I stiffened. Domenico. He let the name linger in the room. You mean nothing to him, he said. But you have something we need. I clenched my jaw. Tell us. He turned, nodded. The second man drew a pistol from his coat, walked to Elena. No ceremony, no pause. He pressed the muzzle to her temple. I screamed. No! Elena was crying now, her shoulders trembling violently. Please, she whispered. Please, Chiara, don't. She doesn't know anything, I said quickly. I'm the one you want. Correct, the man replied. He looked at me with a gaze that had seen too many people break. We know Domenico told you something. A name, a place, coordinates. Tell us. This ends. I breathed through my nose, chest burning. The secret he gave me weeks ago echoed in my skull. Just one line, spoken with that voice that always felt like sin. If you ever hear the name Lorenzo Bianchi, you run. I didn't know who Bianchi was, didn't care, but they did. They wanted that name, that connection. And if I said it, no, I wouldn't, even now, even bleeding. Because whatever that name meant, Domenico trusted me with it, and I trusted him. God help me. No, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You misunderstand the situation. He turned to Elena and nodded again. The blow came fast, a punch to her ribs, then another. She screamed, folding into herself. Stop! I yelled, twisting against the ropes. I'll tell you, just stop! The man held up a hand. The beating stopped. I was crying now, voice hoarse. She doesn't deserve this. She's leverage, he said. Collateral. I shook my head. You're monsters. He crouched again. Say the name. No. Say it. I won't. He stood, then nodded. The man behind him turned and walked toward me. I braced. Pain exploded through my side, my temple, my shoulder. I choked on my own breath. Still, I didn't speak. Even when my face hit cold concrete. Even when Elena sobbed behind me. Even as blood dripped from my mouth. I turned my head, spit onto the floor, and glared up at the man through swollen eyes. Go to hell. His smile disappeared. Then everything went black.
I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the house. Too quiet, too still. Not the silence of control, but of something already broken. Marco was waiting for me in the foyer, his face pale beneath his usual mask of stoicism. They went too far, he said. I didn't ask who. I already knew. How far? I asked, voice flat. Marco hesitated. There was contact. I stilled. Elena? He nodded. Chiara? He didn't answer. My jaw cracked as it clenched. The silence between us thickened. Marco didn't meet my eyes. The cowardice in that told me everything I needed to know. I turned, headed for the car. Domenico, Marco called. I stopped at the door. If you go like this, I'm going, I said. You can follow, or you can stay here and pray. The car ride was silent. My hand gripped the pistol resting on my thigh. The city blurred past the windows, neon and night folding into nothing. I didn't see it. All I saw was her face. The last time she looked at me, the moment she kissed me first, the way her breath caught when I touched her, when I promised her no one would ever harm her again. And now she was bleeding because of me, because I let my father in, because I believed him when he said no physical harm, because I wanted her to prove something. To me, to them, to herself, and I was wrong. So fucking. I remembered the way my father looked at me that night in my suite, the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth when I demanded restraint, the patience in his tone. He never intended to follow the rules. He wanted to break her, to prove that my kind of love was weakness, that loyalty could be shattered under pressure. But he'd made a fatal miscalculation, because Chiara wasn't a pawn. She was the knife, and he had handed her to butchers. We pulled up outside the safe house, an old villa on the edge of the city, too clean, too quiet. A dog barked somewhere in the hills, but even that felt distant. I stepped out before the engine stopped. Marco followed, silently checking his weapon. I didn't knock. I kicked the door in. 2 guards scrambled from a hallway. I shot the first before he could draw. The second froze, hands raised, stammering. Down, I said. He dropped. I moved through the house like a shadow, a force. Another door, reinforced. I heard voices on the other side, laughing. Then, A scream. Not loud, not theatrical, but raw, guttural. Elena. Then another sound. A muffled thud. A sob. Kiara. My vision narrowed. My pulse slowed. I raised my gun and opened the door to hell. The room stank of sweat and fear. Dim lighting. Blood on the floor. Two men circling the girls like jackals. Kiara was slumped forward, face bruised, lips split, arms bound behind the chair. Elena wasn't much better, crying softly, head down. One of the men turned to me. He started to speak. I didn't let him finish. One shot, then another. The other man reached for his belt. Too slow. I put a bullet through his chest. Silence. Kiara groaned. I dropped the gun, rushed to her. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. When she saw me, her whole body trembled. I didn't tell them, she whispered, voice cracked. I didn't say anything. I swear. I didn't. I dropped to my knees, tore the ropes from her wrists. She was shaking, bleeding. I pulled her into my arms. She flinched at first, then collapsed into me, sobbing against my chest. I kissed her hair, her temple, her filthy blood-stained cheek. I looked at her ruined face, the bruises, the defiance still burning behind the tears, and I broke. It's all my fault. I let this happen. Me. Perdonami, amore. Please, forgive me. She shook her head weakly, arms clinging to my coat, but I held her tighter, and I swore in that moment, in that blood-soaked room, no one would ever touch her again, not even God himself.
Pain was everywhere. Not sharp, not screaming, dull, deep, heavy, like my body had become a grave I couldn't climb out of. Something warm held me, not fire, arms, Domenico. I opened my eyes slowly. The world was a smear of red and shadow. I couldn't move my arms, couldn't lift my head. I heard someone sobbing, not me. Elena. My voice was nothing, a breath, a ghost. She's here, he said softly. She's alive. I blinked until my vision cleared enough to see the shape of her, curled against the wall, shaking but breathing. I exhaled, and then I remembered everything. The men, the fists, the gun, my screams, her screams, the taste of blood. My muscles tensed. Domenico's arms tightened around me. Don't, I whispered. Don't touch me. He froze, then pulled back, slowly, gently. I tried to sit up, failed. My ribs screamed. He reached for me again. This time, I let him. I hated that I let him. I didn't tell them, I said again. I didn't. His jaw clenched. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. I know. You told me that name. I know. They beat us. I know. I looked at him, really looked, and I saw it. The guilt, the rage, the self-hatred clawing at his throat. You knew what they were going to do. He didn't deny it. That hurt more than the bruises. You said it would be psychological. I believed him. No, you didn't. My voice cracked. You wanted to believe, but you knew. He looked away. His silence was confession. My vision blurred again, not from pain this time, from betrayal. I should have screamed at him, cursed him, hit him, but I didn't. Because somewhere beneath the wreckage of my body and the wreckage of us, I still wanted him to hold me. That was the worst part. I still wanted him. I started to cry. Not like before. Not in panic. Not in fear. Quiet, broken tears that came from a place deeper than bone. He pulled me back into his arms. I didn't stop him. His voice was ragged against my ear. I'll kill them again if you want. I'll dig them up and do it slower. I didn't laugh, but something in me cracked. I buried my face in his chest. I felt his lips on my hair, trembling. I should have protected you, he said. I should have never let you near this world. I didn't answer, because he was wrong. I wasn't near this world. I was inside it now, and I didn't know how to leave. Eventually, I slept, wrapped in the arms of the man who broke me, and prayed he was still the one who could put me back together.
The blood on my hands had dried, but it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. The next morning, I returned to the safe house alone. Marco offered to come. I said no. I needed silence. I needed stillness. I needed vengeance, clean and personal. The bodies were still there, cold, stiff, flies already circling. I didn't look away. I lit a cigarette, not because I smoke, but because the flame calmed my hands. One of the men had a tattoo on his neck, a mark of loyalty to my father's old guard. I stared at it for a long time. Then I drew my knife. I didn't flinch when the blade tore through cartilage and skin. I didn't stop until the symbol was gone, a bloody mess of flesh on the floor. Bury them, I told the men waiting outside. And if someone asks, one of them said. I turned. If they ask, tell them the message was clear. I left, before the stench of cowardice could crawl into my skin again. The villa in Tuscany was exactly how I remembered it. Old, over-decorated, reeking of power that didn't need to prove itself. My father was on the terrace, reading. A single espresso sat untouched beside him. He didn't look up as I approached. I heard you made a mess, he said. I pulled out the same chair I used to sit in when I was 14, when I still thought he could be impressed. I cleaned it up. Pity. Those were useful men. No, they were yours. He finally looked at that smile, that ancient smugness. I wanted to rip it from his face. You said psychological, I said. You agreed. I said many things. She was bleeding. He shrugged. She survived. That was the point. No. The point was to prove her loyalty. And she did, he said, sipping his espresso. So what are you complaining about? I leaned. She was tied to a chair. She didn't break. She bled. He met my eyes. Cold to cold. And now you know she's worth keeping. You're welcome. I stood. He didn't. I'm taking over, I said. He smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. You've been taking over since the moment you lied about that girl on the train. I adjusted my cuffs, straightened my coat. If anyone touches her again, I said softly, I won't stop at flunkies. His expression didn't change, but his fingers twitched. Is that a threat, son? No, I said, turning away. It's a promise. And I never break mine. When I returned to the city, Chiara was asleep in my bed. Not sedated, not broken, just exhausted. She clutched my pillow like it could protect her from the world. I knelt beside her, touched her hair, swore again, for the last time, anyone who touches her bleeds, including me.
The first thing I felt was softness, cotton sheets, warm blankets, the faint scent of rosemary and leather. Then came the pain, dull, slow, widespread, like every nerve in my body was grieving. I opened my eyes, dim light filtered through gauzy curtains. A breeze moved the fabric just slightly, like fingers ghosting across skin. I tried to sit up. A groan escaped before I could stop it. Easy, came his voice. I turned my head. Domenico sat beside the bed, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, eyes swollen from lack of sleep. He looked like a man who had bled for a century. You're awake, he said softly. I'm alive, I whispered. He nodded, exhaling a breath I didn't realize he'd been holding. You slept for 20 hours. My lips were dry. He brought a glass of water to them without asking. I drank, slowly. My wrists were bandaged, my ribs wrapped, my lips stitched. He had done it all. You shouldn't be here, I said. He didn't respond. He just dipped a cloth into warm water and began cleaning my face with a gentleness I didn't know he possessed. His thumb traced under my eye. You bruise like marble, he said. I closed my eyes, let him touch me, just for a moment. Is Elena okay? He nodded. Safe, sleeping in the next room. Relief washed over me, sharp, sudden. I reached for his hand, then paused. He noticed. He placed his hand over mine anyway. I'll never forgive myself, he said. You don't get to make this about you. I know. Silence stretched between us. Not angry, not cold, just full of everything we couldn't say. When he spoke again, his voice was hoarse. I cleaned the blood myself. Yours or theirs. Both. I didn't ask for names. I didn't want them. I just wanted to feel human again. He moved closer, sat beside me on the bed. His fingers brushed my wrist. Can I nodded. His lips touched mine like a question. I answered by kissing him back. No hunger, no games, just heat, breath, forgiveness in the form of skin. I pulled him down with me. He hesitated. I don't want to hurt you. You won't, I said. Not this time. His hands found my waist, slow and reverent. He kissed the bruises on my ribs, my collarbone, my throat. Each touch said, I'm sorry. Each sigh said, I'm still yours. We didn't speak again. Not when he removed my shirt. Not when I helped him out of his. Not when our bodies met. Slow and sure. It wasn't about lust. It wasn't about power. It was about survival. About reclaiming something no one had the right to take. He moved like he was afraid I'd vanish. I held him like I was afraid I wouldn't. Afterward, he stayed inside me, arms locked around my back, mouth at my temple. I love you, he whispered. I didn't answer, but my tears told him everything he needed to know.
The hall reeked of power. A long table stretched across the old wine cellar, now converted into a command room of silence and smoke. Velvet chairs, crystal glasses, men in tailored suits who built their reputations on fear and blood, and none of them scared me, not anymore. I walked in without guards, without announcement, without hesitation. The conversation died the second I stepped through the door. 12 men, each one older than me, each one waiting for me to fail. I didn't sit immediately. I walked the length of the table, letting my boots echo against the marble floor, letting them feel the weight of silence. Then I reached the head chair, the one that once belonged to my father, and sat. They watched. I looked at no one, until I looked at all of them. I killed 3 of my father's men yesterday, I said. No reaction. Good. They were learning. I buried them without ceremony. without names, because they broke my command. I poured water into a glass, took a slow sip. They touched something that belongs to me. A few eyes flicked toward Giulietta. She sat near the end of the table, quiet and composed. Marco beside her, now officially bound to her by the agreement. She didn't look angry. She looked relieved. Smart girl. She was never yours to begin with, one of the older capos said. I turned to him, slowly. Say that again, he swallowed. You meant to test me. He didn't answer. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. Let me make this clear for the last time. I reached into my jacket. 12 men shifted in their chairs. I pulled out a black coin, solid, smooth, the seal of command etched in its face, the falcon with blood at its beak. I dropped it on the table. It rang like a bullet. I am in command. The words didn't need volume. They carried weight because they were true. I am not my father. I am not here to keep the peace. I looked around the table. If you cross me, you won't die fast. You won't die proud. I looked directly at the capo who spoke. You'll die buried in concrete and forgotten before sunset. Silence. I stood. The message had landed. I didn't smile. I didn't ask for approval. I didn't need. As I turned to leave, I paused, let the silence hang. Then with my back to them, I said, Chiara is mine. No one looks at her. No one breathes near her. No one says her name unless I say it first. A pause. If you do, the ones I buried will look lucky. I walked out without waiting for a response. Because there wouldn't be. Because fear speaks loudest when it's quiet. Marco followed me out. Steps measured. She'll be safe now, he said. She should have been safe from the beginning. He didn't respond. I turned to him. Protect Giulietta. Not because I asked. Because I promised. He nodded once. And you? He meant Chiara. I looked out at the city. The empire I now commanded. The chaos I had mastered. The violence I had inherited. And the one woman who made all of it worth burning down if I had to. I'll keep her, I said. Even if it means losing everything else. Because in the end, power was only real if you had something to lose. And I finally did.
Morning was slow, golden, the kind of morning that doesn't knock but seeps in through the cracks and spreads across your skin like silk. I woke wrapped in linen, warm and weightless. The pain was still there, faint echoes in my ribs, bruises blooming beneath skin, but it no longer controlled me. The silence in the room wasn't empty. It was sacred. I sat up, careful. The sheets slipped down my body, cool against bare shoulders. My clothes were folded on a velvet armchair. A steaming cup of chamomile tea waited on the bedside table, still fragrant. Domenico had been here, but he hadn't woken me, because he knew I needed rest more than I needed him. That knowledge wrapped tighter around me than any blanket. I stood, feet touching cold marble. The air smelled of rosewater and citrus. Somewhere in the distance, birds sang like the world had nothing to regret. I found the bathroom. The light was low. The tub had been filled, still hot, still waiting. I slipped the blouse off my shoulders. Then I paused. He was there, leaning in the doorway, silent, as if afraid I might disappear with a breath. I didn't cover myself. He didn't look away, not with lust, with something heavier, reverence. I stepped into the tub. The water welcomed me. Then he moved, rolled his sleeves, knelt beside me, and without saying a word, began to bathe me. His hands were careful, gentle, as if he feared causing more pain. A soft cloth, slow circles over my shoulders, down my arms, along my back. He cleaned the bloodstains I hadn't noticed, the ones I had learned to ignore. I closed my eyes, let him touch me like that, not to claim, not to possess, to care. He washed my hair, poured warm water over my scalp. His fingers moved through my curls like I was something sacred. When he finished, he kissed my temple, then left me alone. He didn't say a word, and I'd never felt so loved. I was buttoning the last pearl on a silk blouse when the door creaked. Giulietta. She stood tall, poised as always, her dress flawless, hair pinned like it belonged to a dynasty. I expected disdain. I received something else. Respect. She crossed the room slowly, stopped just close enough. I'm leaving, she said simply. I know. She doesn't speak, but she sees everything, Domenico had once said about her. He was right. Giulietta looked me in the eyes, and for the first time, I didn't look away. She reached into her coat and pulled out a folded scarf. She offered it without ceremony. Silk, Italian, yours now. I took it. A peace treaty, an acknowledgement, not of defeat, but of something rarer, acceptance. She turned to go, paused. He never looked at me the way he looks at you. Then she was gone. The corridor was long, lined with old paintings and soft light. I ran my fingers along the stone walls. They didn't feel cold anymore. At the end, an open balcony, morning spilling in, and him. Domenico stood with his back to me, black shirt, sleeves rolled, one hand resting on the balcony rail, the other holding a glass of something dark and expensive. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. He knew I was there. I walked to him. He looked over his shoulder, then looked at me, slowly, like he was memorizing me, like the mere sight of me had undone something inside him. I reached for his glass and took a sip. He didn't stop me. I tasted fire, spice, honey. You didn't run, he said. I wanted to. He nodded. I would have come after you. I know. We didn't speak for a while. The city stretched before us, ancient and powerful, but nothing in it felt more certain than the space between us. I'm not the same woman, I said. No. You still want me? He turned fully. His hand reached for my face but stopped just short. I don't want you, he said. I need you. The words didn't sting. They ignited. I leaned into his palm, letting his warmth soak into me. I'm not afraid of your world anymore. Good, he said, voice low, because now it's yours too. He kissed me then, softly, like we had all the time in the world, and maybe we did.
The courtyard was candlelit. No guests, no music, no witnesses, only her. She stood in the center of the stone garden, barefoot on marble veined with age, a shawl around her shoulders, hair loose in soft waves that caught the breeze like a... She hadn't noticed the change yet, the way the flowers had been placed, the path lit by soft golden flame, the silence orchestrated like a sacred vow. I waited at the edge of the space, watching her, remembering the first time I saw her, curled against the window of a train, exhausted but unbroken, the first time she looked at me with hatred, the first time she kissed me with fire, and every time she chose to stay, even when I gave her every reason to run. She turned and saw me, her breath caught. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. She didn't move, she didn't speak. I stopped one step in front of her, and dropped to my knees. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled instantly, not because she expected it, because she never expected anything. That was what made her mine. I reached into my coat, not a box, a simple black velvet pouch. I opened it. Inside, a ring with no diamond, no stone, just iron, melted from the first bullet I ever fired. I could give you gold, I said, but I want you to wear something that speaks the truth. She lowered her head, shaking. I've ruined too many things, but not this, not you, not us. I looked up at her. My voice cracked, not from weakness, from reverence. You are the first and only thing I've ever wanted for myself. She stared at me, tears slipping down her cheeks, silent and beautiful and wrecked. I won't promise you safety, or peace, or a life free of shadows. I paused. I'll only promise this. You will never be alone in the dark again. Her knees gave out. She fell to the ground in front of me, arms around my neck, mouth against my throat. I've already been yours, she whispered. Since that train. I slid the ring onto her finger. It fit like it was made for her, because it was. She kissed me then, not gently, not politely, but with every ounce of the fire we had survived. And when she pulled back, her voice shook the stars above us. Yes, that was all she said, and all I would ever need.
The floor was marble, polished, pale, cool beneath my bare feet. I could have worn shoes, but I didn't want to. I wanted to feel everything. The weight of the fabric on my skin, the way the candles flickered along the aisle, throwing soft shadows against the stone walls, the quiet murmur of ancient air. I walked slowly, not because I was afraid, because I needed every step, to remember, to feel the bones that healed, the bruises that faded, the scars that stayed, hidden beneath silk but never erased. Each breath was a memory. The train, his voice. Good morning, amore mio. The slap, the lie, the truth that grew beneath it, the cold nights, the first touch, the first time I trembled and hated myself for it, and then the first time I didn't. I passed by tall candles, their flames dancing gently, as if the air itself held its breath, and then I saw him, at the end of the aisle, Domenico. He didn't wear black. He wore a deep gray, understated, unthreatening, but still sharp enough to kill. His hands were folded, his mouth still, his eyes, God, his eyes. They shattered me, because they were full of something that didn't exist in our world. Wonder, like he couldn't believe I was real, that I'd made it, that I'd chosen him. I didn't stop walking. The room was empty of guests. No crowd, no witnesses, just us, like it always had been. The priest stood quietly to the side, forgotten. I stopped a foot from him. He didn't speak. Neither did I, because we didn't need to. We had already said everything, in bullets, in blood, in bruised skin and whispered promises. He took my hand. His thumb brushed the iron ring on my finger, and then I broke every rule. I do, I said, voice steady. He blinked. His throat moved. Then he laughed, soft, stunned. The priest chuckled, looked down, then nodded once and stepped back. Domenico cupped my face. His thumbs traced my cheeks. "You're early," he whispered. "You took too long," I whispered back. He kissed me before he was told to. Of course he did. His mouth was soft, slow, like we had eternity to get it right this time. When we parted, he rested his forehead against mine. No vows, no audience, no applause, just truth. I was his, he was mine, and no one in the world would ever change that. Not family, not history, not blood, not death. I smiled. "I wasn't saved," I said. He pulled back, looking into me. I was chosen, and I chose to stay.
Luca, your stance is trash. Dad, seriously? Marco, lift your elbow or the recoil's gonna make you look like a ballerina again. Not this again. Matteo, I said focus, not flirt with the instructor's daughter. I wasn't. And Enzo, I turned slowly toward the youngest. I love you, but if you miss the target again, I'm enrolling you in ballet with Matteo. Dad! The club echoed with the sound of adolescent groaning. It was music to my ears. 4 boys, 4 disasters. Luca, 17, stoic, brooding, too much like me for anyone's peace of mind. Marco, 16, clever mouth, quick hands, already better than all of us with a blade but couldn't shoot for shit. Matteo, 15, all charm, no filter, legs too long for his coordination. And Enzo, 14 going on 45, thoughtful, analytical, obsessed with numbers and structure. God bless Chiara's genetics for that one. We stood at the open range, sun low in the sky, targets lined up like cardboard enemies. The boys were red-faced, sweating, trying too hard not to disappoint. I'd taught them better. Or at least, I'd tried. Luca stepped forward again, lifted the pistol with a concentration that would have been impressive if his grip wasn't so stiff. Bang. He missed wide. I sighed, loudly. "Okay, you're grounded. You can't ground me for bad aim. Watch me." "Technically," Enzo said, adjusting his goggles, "you can't ground him unless you also ground Marco for—" Bang. That. Marco's shot missed the edge of the board completely. I raised an eyebrow. "That target was 12 feet away, Marco." I blinked. "You blinked for 3 seconds?" It was a long blink. Matteo stepped up, confident. He fired, turned dramatically, and missed by 2 inches. "Did you see how close that was?" he said proudly. "To the ground? To the edge." I pressed a hand to my face. "I've failed you all. Or you just taught us better with knives," Luca muttered. "Oh, definitely," Marco added. "We could slice those targets. We just can't shoot them. And when exactly do you think the world will wait for you to pull out your knives, Silence. "Exactly." The range attendant approached, trying not to smile. "They have potential, sir." "I know. So did my first car. It still exploded." He blinked, unsure if I was joking. Spoiler, I wasn't. The boys reset. Arguments bloomed about which stance was superior. None. Who blinked more? Marco. And whether Chiara would have hit it. She would have, obviously. Then, like fate trying to prove a point, she appeared. Chiara. She walked toward us, slow and effortless. A bottle of water in one hand, the sun making her curls glow like gold laced with fire. The boys stopped mid-sentence. Weapons lowered. "Mun?" Luca asked. She raised an eyebrow. "I heard there were casualties in precision and dignity. Thought I'd assess the damage." Matteo smiled, wide. "We're just warming up. I can smell the gunpowder and testosterone from the other building," she said, stepping closer. "And none of it smells like hits." Marco groaned. "Come on, Mom." She held out her hand. "Gun." Enzo blinked. "Are you gonna shoot?" "I'm going to end the suffering." I handed her my pistol without a word. She walked to the firing line, slow and poised. No rush. She stood still for a moment, adjusted the safety, lifted the gun. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots, 3 direct hits. Dead center. Silence. Then, what? Wait. No way. "That was luck," Matteo said, jaw slack. Chiara handed me back the gun. "Luck wears heels and raises 4 boys. You should try it sometime." The boys laughed, half in shock, half in love. Even Luca smiled. I stepped behind her, quiet, close. She tensed when she felt me, then relaxed into my body like she always did. I kissed the side of her neck, soft, slow. The boys all groaned in unison. "Pai serio? Seriously? Gross." I grinned against her skin. "Boys, take notes. This is called winning." She laughed, low in her throat. "You're such a show-off. I learned from the best. You're impossible. I'm married. Same thing." She turned to face me. I looked into the same eyes that once defied me on a train. The same eyes that saw me kill, saw me fall in love without permission. "You knew they'd be watching," she said. "Of course. And that I'd hit every shot?" I leaned closer. "You never miss. Except you." "No," I said. "You didn't miss. You aimed for the center." The boys were arguing again behind us. demanding proof that her shots were real, planning rematches, swearing vengeance. Kiara looked at them, then at me, then at her hand and mine. "You regret it?" I asked quietly. "All of it?" She leaned her head on my shoulder, watching our sons fail gloriously at reloading. "No," she whispered. "I regret nothing." And I believed her, because the truth was, we never really stopped being that girl and that man on a train. We just gave them names. Luca, Marco, Matteo, Enzo, and in their voices, in their laughter, in their chaos, I found peace. At last.
The resort was carved into the cliffs like a secret, private, isolated, silent, the kind of place only ghosts and kings visited. And we were both. The ocean stretched below us, silver under the full moon. Wind curled through linen curtains. Somewhere in the distance, a jazz trio played something smooth and forgettable. But I wasn't listening. I was watching her. She was tall, golden skin, hair like honey poured down her back, red lips and no shame. She was watching me. And Domenico was watching her watch me. I could feel it from across the room, the tension in the air, thick like the velvet wrapped around the balcony railing. He sat in a corner booth, drink untouched, eyes locked on me while pretending not to stare. He didn't move, because he didn't need to. He just waited, like a storm with a name. The woman walked past me again, close enough for her perfume to cling to my skin. She smiled. I didn't return it, but I didn't step back either. I didn't have to, because Domenico stood, slowly, deliberately. He crossed the floor like the floor itself bent to his will. The woman looked up, hopeful, expectant, but he didn't glance at her. He looked only at me, and I burned under it. When he reached me, he didn't speak. He just took my hand, cold rings, warm skin, tension like lightning between us. He didn't say a word, until the elevator doors closed. Then he turned to me, eyes dark, mouth hard, hands still in his pockets like they didn't want to break anything. "You enjoyed that." I didn't stop it. His jaw twitched. "You were jealous." "I still am." I laughed, soft. He stepped forward, and suddenly the air disappeared. His body caged mine against the wall, but he didn't touch me. Not yet. He leaned in, mouth near my ear, voice a whisper carved from gravel and heat. "She looked at you like she wanted to taste you. And you looked at me like you already had." His hand slammed beside my head, not in threat, in restraint. "She forgot whose name you scream, and you forgot how much I like making you remember." His control snapped. One hand gripped my jaw, the other found my waist. His mouth crushed mine with a hunger that had no age, only hunger. We kissed like we were 25 again, like the world hadn't tried and failed to kill us, like this wasn't a second honeymoon, but a resurrection. He pulled back just enough to speak. "Do you know what still terrifies me?" "What?" "That I'll wake up one day and you won't be there." "You should know by now," I said, voice thick. "I always come back." His lips brushed mine again. "Say it." "I'm yours." "Always?" "Always." The elevator chimed. Doors slid open. We didn't move. He smiled against my skin. "Rumor rooftop." I grinned. "Wherever you swear not to let me go." He took my hand again. And this time, we ran, laughing. Like the danger never touched us. Like love was the sharpest weapon we ever carried. And we both knew how to use it. Thank you for staying until the end. If you listened to every chapter, felt every breath, every touch, then you already know. This story wasn't written in ink, but in skin, memory, and scar. Your presence here, silent or spoken, is more than a number. It's a pact. If it moved you in any way, give something back. A comment, a like, a simple, "I'm here." Every time you react, share, or simply stay, this story grows. And with it, the fire to keep writing, with soul, with blood, with truth. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. It's free, but it means everything. And if you can, share it with someone who needs to remember what love, even dark, even damaged, can still heal. In a world full of noise, sometimes one story is enough. Maybe ours is. Thank you for being here, and may you always feel welcome, even in silence. Here, you are home.